What's up guys, Jens Gracie here, and as you can see on the title, we're going to be testing out the performance on the Samsung Galaxy S4 and the HTC One. So we're going to be taking a look at the benchmarks on both devices, and then after that we're going to be comparing both phones based on real-world scenarios such as opening apps, playing games, and browsing the web. Now before we continue on, a big thanks to our friends at Mobicity for supplying us the device. They have a wide range of unlocked smartphones, so please do check them out. I have their link in the description box down below. Alright, so without further ado, this is the HTC One versus the Samsung Galaxy S4. Inside the S4 is a quad-core Snapdragon 600 processor, accompanied by Adreno 320 graphics chip and 2GB of RAM. The HTC One, on the other hand, features a little less clock speed at 1.7 GHz, but has the same processor and graphics chip as well as the same amount of RAM. With two high clock rates and almost similar internal components, we are definitely gonna expect some pretty high scores with a slight advantage on the Galaxy S4 because of its higher clock rate. The first app that we're gonna be using is the Geekbench 2. Now it's one of the most popular benchmark test app on the Play Store, and it's basically gonna be testing out every internal components from CPU to storage. Now the Galaxy S4 scored a total of just below 3200, while the HTC One is scored just over 2600. Clearly you can see the huge gap on the Galaxy S4 because of the higher clock rate. To extend this even more, the integer score basically tells you which device has a better CPU performance when performing intensive tasks. The floating point is basically a little similar to that, but it's more focused on high processing apps and games. But overall, it's completely obvious that the S4 has a better performance here. I know I've just tested out the GPUs on both devices, but let's do another test where it's basically just focused on the GPU of both devices. I've used the 3D Mark test to test the benchmarks on this. Both are running the Adreno 320, which is, well, one of the most powerful chips out there. Now as a result, both devices had an amazing result, with Samsung just a little higher comparing to the HTC One. Even though the HTC One scored a bit lower than the Galaxy S4, you shouldn't really see a big differences between the two when it comes to playing intensive games. Now, although I did find that the Galaxy S4 to have a better frame rates comparing to the HTC One, but as I've said, both phones are really amazing when playing intensive games. Performance test is not complete without JavaScript benchmark test. Now I've used SunSpider for this, and it was a pretty close, but the HTC One has a much higher result, which means that it's slightly better when it comes to rendering and animation. Now that we've done all the benchmarks, what about the performance based on everyday use? Now both phones are running its own skinned version of Android. The Tweak TouchWiz is even more customizable with plenty of new features. Opening apps that you would normally use, like the messaging and the browsing app for example, would run as fine even when opening up games was pretty smooth experience. However, once the gestures and scrolling features have been enabled on the Galaxy S4, now you'll start seeing some stutter, lag, and a few delays on the phone. The HTC One, on the other hand, was running the smoothest based on the same test as the Galaxy S4. Now the Sense 5 seems to have a better optimization, but in my opinion, I think it's all because of the new gestures and features on the Galaxy S4. But if you use a different launcher like the Nova launcher, for example, or the Apex launcher, it seems to fix the problem a little bit. But I do believe that Samsung will sure fix the problem over the next upcoming updates. Both phones do have a great performance, and it's almost a close call. While the HTC One may run better than the S4, I would still have to give it to the S4 because of the better benchmark. Plus the lag is not something that's always going to be there, as it can always be fixed through firmware updates. So there you have it guys, I hope you enjoyed watching the video, and if you do, please give it a thumbs up as it helps the channel, and make sure to subscribe so you won't miss any of my videos. Once again, thanks to Mobicity for the device. I'm Jens Gracie, and I will see you all in the next one.